that there's been lots of examples of like interesting startups coming up, but how many turn into sustainable businesses? Is it possible in the UK to build a sustainable business in educational games? And if it's not, what needs to change for that to happen?
I think I'd flip the question around. Who can tell me the biggest exit in the UK EdTech sector in the last 10 years? Can anybody? Any idea? They're here today. It's Education Cities. They sold for 85 million. It was 15 times EBITDA. You know, it was a great deal. God knows how they managed to get it done. So yes, you can do it. Yes, people will do it. I think my view, and I can see Alan McGuire down the back, and he may either agree or disagree with me from Leaf Investments. I think the biggest opportunity in this sector in 2015 is buy and build. It's what Sovereign Capital did a couple of years ago with special education needs facilities and other things like that. Because there's lots of great stuff around that you'll see here in the startup sector today. But a lot of it is going to be screwed by being overvalued or having distribution problems and things like that. And the reality is, I'd love to have 50 million so I could buy 20 companies in this space and whack them together. Because a lot of you are trying to be successful publishers with one book, effectively. So that would be my sort of 2 pence worth on that for now.
For ourselves, we just recently secured Series A, and I think other people can go on to do it, but as we've already said, part of the problem is a lot of our ideas that are out there in education games are just way too small. They're just way too small scale. There's like 100,000 apps in the Apple's education, and so many of them are like preschool English and maths games. And if your idea is to make another one of those games and go to an investor, they're not going to put money in. There's nothing new about that idea. Something that we're trying to take on board is deliver education games for junior high school students and tackle social sciences. People don't do that. It's hard. It's really hard to do. I know, I'm doing it now. But we've got no competition. So I think if you go to investors with a big idea that's bold, it's got to be bold. You've got to start saying, like, this is how I'm going to be self-sustainable from a consumer market. This is how I'm going to grow in schools. You know, there's about 8 million kids in UK schools, but how are you going to get into US schools where there's 50 million kids? I think if you can start talking about numbers like that with investors, you might secure funding and you might go on to success, but I think your idea and your ambition has got to be big and bold.
Next question. We've all been in this industry for varying amounts of time. Can you talk a little bit about how the industry has changed in the time that you've worked in it? Maybe if you're brave enough, you can say how long you've been working in it and what you've learned from that.
I'm the one who's been in it for the longest. I'm the one with the least hair and probably the weirdest bank account and very patient wife. The industry has changed quite significantly. I think it's changed in some ways for the better. You see more ideas, you see more entrepreneurial people. The downside is that there's a bit of a cargo cult that you think you've got to go through an incubator, or you think you've got to go through an accelerator, or you've got to get to Series A, or you've got to be a B2C type business. I think probably some of the stuff I'm seeing that's much more interesting now are B2B businesses in EdTech and maybe less so in the game space. There is a little bit more money now. I think one of the things that's changed, that hasn't changed, largely is that larger investors still sit on their hands in Europe. I think over 25% of the startup money in the UK last year actually came out of the States. One of the things you should think about if you want to raise money in the States is setting up a Delaware company, which is like Switzerland in the middle of America. So things have changed. One of my first success stories, we had a little maths product in Australia called Daisy Maths. It's done by a mate of mine. We were going to ship it out as a CD that would never have worked, so I got Kraft to sponsor it. They gave us 300 grand a year in cash, $1 million in co-op marketing. This is 15 years ago. And they still think to this day say it was the most successful sponsorship deal they've ever done in Australia, which included the Olympic team. So look for flexible business models. You know, don't just look that you're going to be on the App Store or you're going to be, doing what everyone else is doing. Because if you do that, you're going to end up in a bugger's muddle.